Hi, this is Marlon, and today I want to talk about the Blackmagic Design Web Presenter. This is a unit that we've been using in our Sunday morning live stream, and it's replaced our Mevo. So you might have seen my other video where I talked about why we chose to use this and some of the connectivity on the back that really makes it a great option for us. Today I want to talk about the front side and some of the interface. So let's dig into that. The first thing I want you to notice that this is a small space. It is actually one rack unit space in terms of height, and in terms of width or how it fits there, it's 1/3. So that means you could fit literally 3 of these or 3 similar sized devices next to each other, and they would fit nicely in one rack unit. Let's talk about the unit itself. By default, this unit does not come with this faceplate. This is an option that you have to purchase and install yourself. And it's a great thing if you want to use the front panel as your switching device. So that's what we've used this for. We're using it as a live switcher, and it's converting our stream to 720 and sending it out to our feed. It's been working flawless for us. So let's talk about this interface if you do choose to purchase it. It comes with 6 buttons. Number 1 and number 2 are actually backlit. You can't really tell right now, but one of these is lit green, and it'll show you which one of these is actually your program out. So here is our LCD screen. It shows us what our input signal is, and you'll notice some lovely audio meters. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we have this rotary knob that allows us to go through the menus. So speaking of menu, let's go to the first menu option I have here. Just by rotating the knob, I can go through that. And the first option we want to go to is our setup. Our setup, we have a software version update. We can do update our firmware and also reset it to factory default. We'll move it once to the right, and we have our video input. The Blackmagic Blackmagic Design Web Presenter is limited to a max of 2 video inputs. One will have to be an HDMI input on the back and an SDI input on the back. Now, no problem if you're using 2 HDMI cameras, you would simply have to purchase an extra HDMI to SDI converter to plug that in there. And once you do that, you will have 2 cameras. So I'm going to exit out the menu. I'm going to select camera 1. I'm going to go back to my menu, and this gives me the option of having it set to auto, meaning that whatever's plugged in there first will the camera will recognize it, or I can set it by manual to SDI or HDMI. That's if you want camera 1 maybe to be on the left or camera 2 to be on the right, or vice versa. However you want to do that, you can go through that. And again, remember, if you want to change camera 2, go ahead and press camera 2 itself and then go and change that option. Let's go back to our menu. Let's go to the third menu option. That's transition. When you press between input 1 and input 2, there's a couple of options of transitions. The first one is a simple cut. The second one is a mix. Oh, let me get hit. Oh, there's a set button that lets you go into that menu option. I forgot to say that. So the first one is cut. Then we have a mix, and that is a transition that can be as fast as 0.5 seconds or a maximum of 2 seconds, and then there's in between that's 1 second and 1.5. The other option we have is a dip. Again, 0.5 second being the fastest, and all the way up to 2 seconds on a dip. So those are the 3 transitions that you will have on this unit, and we've chosen to put I think a mix at 2 seconds, and I'm just going to hit set to make sure I like that. Hit our menu button. Let's go to our final menu option. That's audio mixer, and this is really where the web presenter excels. One of the problems that we've had with the Mevo is not getting the audio path from our mixer to our camera to sync and to send out was a little bit of a hassle, and this, boy, it really does a great job. But along with all those audio inputs in the back, let me remind you what they are. We have an XLR, we have RCA left and right, and then there's a couple that you may not think of as audio signals or audio inputs, and that is using the HDMI option. Most cameras, HDMI cameras, will have a built-in microphone, or maybe you add an external microphone. Remember that your HDMI cable can send both audio and video, so you can use the audio from your camera. You don't necessarily need a special mic. You can use the built-in mics. And the same goes for the SDI input. So let's talk about these things here really quickly. The first thing I want you to know is, I'm going to click set to enter that, is we have a master level, and if I hit set again, you'll notice we have a lovely screen there of 12 dB. This means whatever signal is coming out of this unit, we can give it a boost of a maximum of 12 dB. Now that's great because sometimes our signals are too low and sometimes our signals are too hot. We want to reduce them. We can reduce this all the way to negative 36 dB. So this is a great way to be able to manage and control audio so we don't clip, we don't distort, or we don't have such low that nobody can really hear it. And again, those are going to be the parameters: plus 12 dB and our audio gain, negative 36 dB cut. And I'm going to move this guy just down to 0. And it goes in degrees of 10. And I'm going to hit set. All right, let's go to the next option, is source inputs. And as I mentioned, again, there are 4 options for source inputs. The first one is SDI input. And on the SDI input, what we are telling this unit is, hey, take the audio from the SDI unit and put it out to our stream. Now, it's very important that you know which one you've selected, because actually that does affect what your meters are showing. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. So we can also on this one have, again, a 12 dB gain or a negative 36 dB cut. Let me just scrunch out of there. We can turn our input and off and on if I hit set. Right now I have it to off, but if I wanted to use that, I would simply move it to on. And then the web presenter gives you a third option called AFV. That those initials stand for audio follows video, which means if I have that option set, if camera 1 is set to my SDI input and I want the microphone or microphones connected to that camera to come in here, and I switch to 1, it'll automatically follow whatever's coming from that camera. If I have both cameras set up, maybe I have a left and right and I have a person, maybe I'm doing a 2-person interview, and I set that up to both of my cameras, and I have 2 mics on those cameras, it's going to be switching maybe between the left and the right camera, however I have that set up. So AFV, for our purpose, we don't use it. In fact, we don't use any of the SDI or HDMI options because we choose to use our XLR input, which means our audio is coming directly from our board. So I'm going to leave that off. Let's go back to menu. And the same option can be set for your HDMI input, just like the SDI. Let's go to the next one, which is our XLR input. Now this is where it gets exciting for me. Our XLR input, if you're not familiar with that, look it up. An XLR is a great way to send audio. It's a balanced line option, which means you have a positive and a negative and a ground, which means you can run that cable for a long time, a great low noise. So we can turn that on and off. We have it on right now. I'm going to go to my input setting, is that I can switch this between mic and line. As you'll notice there, if I switch it to mic, it gives an automatic 10 dB gain, realizes that, again, mic levels need that extra thing, but we have it set to line. And let's go to my next option, using our RCA input. We choose to run our stream in mono, meaning we're coming out our XLR 1-channel signal, but we could run it in stereo. We don't necessarily need to do that, but we could using the RCA inputs. Again, you have input levels there, and you turn it off and on. Now let's go back to our screen. That's basically all the options. We go back to setup. 2 things I want to show here. Number 1 is this button called video and audio. Those are just quick kind of hot keys. I can go directly to the video option or directly to the audio option. So that's what those are there for. Let's get out of there. Let's look at our screen now. I have camera 1, nothing connected to it at this time, but you'll notice I'm seeing some meters here. Right now I only have 1 camera set here, And I want you to remember I set that HDMI input audio to be on. So that's what you're seeing here. You're hearing on or seeing on the screen the audio meter that's showing what the microphone. So I'm just going to tapping my camera here. And if I switch to number 2, again, right now, there goes the camera. It's live. Camera 2 is, again, we're just seeing this audio meter from that. Let's do something different here. I want to show you something. Let's go to our audio, hit our set button. Let's go to our HDMI input is on. HDMI input is at 12 dB. Let's bring that down. I want to show you how that meter changes. I'm going to kill this guy down to maybe negative 31.7 dB. Just picked it there. Now look at my meter there. Nothing's happening unless I talk real loud. Hey! You saw a little bit of movement there. Let's fix that there. Go back to our audio. Hit set. And we could fix that in a couple ways. The first way, which would be logical, would be to go to our HDMI input and change that to, let's crank it up. Let's do the opposite. Let's give it a good old 10 dB gain on that. Hit set. Now look at that meter. It's nice and hot, and you want to really monitor or teach whoever is running your switcher to really monitor audio, because sometimes you'll have people that all of a sudden are really quiet and then they get really loud. And if you're distorting, that's not a really pleasant thing. Of course, you could add a compressor, but for most things, you know, if you're able to watch it yourself and you know what's happening in your event, you can kind of predict that and control it yourself. You don't have to tell the audio guy, hey, you know, turn it down or turn it up. So there goes a signal. I would feel comfortable with that kind of volume. It's still a little bit soft for me. I would want to see something different. This is a green bar. Above it is yellow, and above that is red. So hitting at the top of the green would probably be like a 0 dB. So let's change that real quick. Go to our audio, hit our set, and instead of changing the audio input on my XLR, HDMI in, sorry, I'm going to change it on our master level. Let's crank up our master another 10 dB. So our HDMI input has a gain of 10, and our master has a gain of 10. Now let's look at that meter now. Let's see what happens. Whoa, that's a nice meter. Nice and big. There goes a little bit yellow. There you go. So that's what that meter is showing. And again, I can't tell you how important that is. You should be concerned about audio in your video productions, in your live stream, because you can tell really quickly when the audio is not that great. If someone's just shooting with their camera, boy, you know, if you can really get into using good microphones, a good mixer or preamp, and then sending that good signal into your video production, you're going to automatically distinguish yourself as somebody who knows what they're doing. Please remember that 50% of your video production is audio. So really take time to make sure your audio signal is clean, it's strong, and again, the Blackmagic Web Presenter really helps with that. So that's all I want to do today is, again, show you this lovely device. In another video, I'll show you how to interact with this using something like Facebook or other streaming options, and show you what it looks like with the app and using it, using some of the options that you will find in the software options. So thanks for your time today, and I look forward to sharing with you another video in the future. Thanks.